Shut up and sit down.
Yeah, when you did it, there was no sound from it.
Shut up and sit down.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of The Black and the Brit. You know what time it is. Giles, what's going on, man?
Good, apart from having to get up early to do a podcast. But we have a lovely guest on today, stateside.
Absolutely. Chuck Modi is going to be here with us.
Looking forward to that.
Chuck Modi, great writer, great political commentator.
It's going to be a lot of politics and a lot of sport, I imagine.
Yeah, it's something like that. But that's coming up in a bit. Giles, what has been, man? Well, the last time I saw you were going through some trials and tribulations.
I don't want to talk about it, Corey. I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about.
I hope you sorted that out, man.
I sorted that out.
All right, so that's good.
Sorted that out.
All right, good.
Shout out to my mum. Mum, we had a phone call this morning. I love you. We'll be all good. I wish I could be there.
Do you want to
much love from the Black and the Brit?
Do you want to talk about what?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Not for this space. But my mum, she was holding out on me. Didn't want to say something, but now she's told me, and I wish she told me earlier. But she has her own reasons. But I wish you all the best. And
yes, we wish her all the best, and that's as much as we're gonna say about that.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to my mother. It's her birthday. Happy birthday to my mother.
Happy birthday.
Yes, I don't know how old
Mama
you are,
Corey.
but definitely old in the.
But you old.
Yeah, definitely old. Definitely hella old. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. Mom's is hella old. So shout out to her. Shout out to my auntie. I think my auntie is doing better. She just got out of the hospital. She got out of the hospital. She had to have a surgery procedure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you call that?
Get well soon.
Yeah, get well soon. Get well soon. Man, it's about time for me to be going back to work. I'm not looking for. You know how when you get into these like, you don't go to work for like 2 or 3 weeks.
A routine.
Well, I think I talked about it last week.
You've been slipping in some wormholes, haven't you, Corey?
Man, I've been up till 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning.
I told Corey last night because we had to get up early because our guest is stateside and he's a 12-hour difference. And I went to bed and I said to Corey, I said, don't slip into a wormhole. And he went, too late. What were you watching?
Man, check this out. So I was watching this documentary about missing these girls that were missing, Native American girls apparently just coming up missing in the same little like reservation, right?
Right.
But that wasn't the part I was tripping off of. The part, I don't know if you're familiar with Native American names.
How now?
No, well, they got
Sitting Bull.
Yeah, usually they have names like that, but apparently the names have been getting like a bit more updated.
Right.
And so some of the names are like really weird. Like some of the girls, they have names like Sarah sees pretty things. I'm like that. Like that's the name. You're supposed to be looking for somebody that's missing.
TikTok Tamara.
Yeah, I was like, how you gonna be taking somebody serious? Yeah, the girls. One of the name was like one of the names. The name of the girl was named Althena. Like laughs a lot out loud. I'm like, yo, man, y'all gotta chill out, man.
That's terrible.
Y'all gotta chill.
Well, that's like the old Hotmail things. Like you had what was your first email address? Was it ever good? Was it like?
No, it's always I've always been pretty good with that. Like CCK 3000.
Yeah, my friends it was just crazy. It was like Chris got a big dick at 69. All this
come
place.
On, man. Nah,
I never had it.
I never went through that.
Mine was just gilesthailand@hotmail.com.
Always kept mine super simple with the initials. But I know some people, like Big Pimpin' 98 at gmail.com. What was it? Anybody out there got some crazy email handles? Let us know, man. Yeah. Let us know in the chats or in the emails.
Well, mine is actually my friend at uni. He always used to call me GTTMT, which is a lot of my stuff says Giles to the motherfucking Thailand.
Oh.
So I used to. So it kind of stuck. So my Yahoo was GTTMT, and now like I have my Google's Giles TTMT. So it's quite annoying because I don't like having so many active email addresses. So I just use that. But then when I'm trying to say it's like Giles, TTMT, and they go, what was it?
Well, it's not that bad actually, because when like if you get like serious inquiries or serious emails, it's like, you know what I mean, nobody's going GTT, yeah, whatever.
But anyway, thank you, Mike Pine. I used to live with him, and
shout out to Mike Pine. You know what we didn't get a chance to talk about because, well, you said apparently last time you said we were talking about. Excuse me, we were talking about the coup that happened in. We didn't get a chance to talk about
Myanmar.
that. Yeah, Myanmar. Yeah. Apparently, it's really going down.
Yeah, it's really well. My friend's living out there, Alan.
Is he still living out there?
Alan Bird.
Sound like he need to be heading for the hills.
He can't. He's living with his lovely lady. And it started off, he was sending me videos, and they were just knocking pots and pans outside, like just making all this racket. But now there's people getting shot. There's people, like, there's massive marches. Yeah.
Sound like it's time to hit the road, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. Just nip over. Just go over the border. You got loads of places there.
You come over here, stay with Giles.
Yeah. Email me at GTMT.
Oh, look at you, like,
yeah, okay. That's okay. He doesn't get Spotify over there, so we can't. So I have to. I have to send him the WhatsApp link to the Podbean so he can listen. So I might miss this one, Alan.
Oh goodness.
I might miss this one.
Anyway, no, but hey, that's a scare. I couldn't imagine what that's like having military. You know, we
had it here a couple years ago.
Not no coup.
No, but there was like tanks going down the street.
I can't remember what was that about.
In Pick, I don't know. I
can't remember. Anyway,
wasn't it that big whatever the guy got booted out of the country? What's his name?
Who?
That guy, the imam that got booted out of the country.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Anyway,
allegedly,
we love Indonesia.
We love Indonesia, and I hope none of that. Luckily, this is a very stable, politically stable country, so we haven't had to go through anything like that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, at least I haven't had to go through anything like that. But some people, you know, it has happened. There has been some political uprisings here as well. This part of the world is kind of unstable anyway.
Yeah,
because it's pretty frequent. It's pretty regular. It's so regular in Thailand that they don't even really trip when the military does a coup. It's like, yeah, anyway.
Well, there was the king of Thailand. Apparently, did you read the story?
He's still doing the fool.
He broke his sister's ankles because she didn't agree with something that he said. So I forget what it was about. But he got the big. Put her in what's that movie? The Stephen King movie where
It.
No, where she breaks the ankles of
Oh, that was not it. That was the one with Kathy Baker. Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates.
And she breaks his ankles.
What's the name of that damn movie?
I know, but anyway.
Oh, you're gonna have me stressing.
What was it? Yeah, Kathy Bates breaks ankles.
Kathy Bates movie was called.
Yeah.
It wasn't it. It was Misery.
Misery. Well done. You beat Google.
Got her. Got him. Got your Googles.
Google. So yeah, she broke, or the king broke her ankles for some disobedience or some shit.
Getting out of pocket.
Yeah, and then there was I don't know whether you're not in the chat group. I think you left the group, but there was some DJ. There's some Vargas. I forget his first name, but he got found with 5 or 6 different possessions of drugs.
Ooh, shout out to him.
They're fixing to give him the death penalty. So
DJ Vargas, I think I know the guy.
Yeah, Vargas or something.
Man, you got to show me his picture.
Yeah, so it's quite. There's been I think he's from Switzerland because August said didn't the Swiss embassy help out Nivaz when she got arrested?
That's right.
Michael Vargas.
I think I bumped into him one day. I think we was DJing the same party somewhere one day. We were DJing at yeah. I know, homeboy. We were DJing the same party one night. I think it was at I want to say it was De Hoy.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was De Hoy. Maybe about 5-6 years ago.
Well, he's not in a good place at the moment.
Well, good luck to him. Good luck with that.
But so here's what it is. So
don't do drugs, like I told y'all. Leave them drugs alone.
Don't get caught.
Don't get caught either.
So but here's what was the funny thing with Indonesia. So there's a big thing for funds to try to get him out because he's facing a death penalty. But if you've got $100,000, we might let just go on. We
might lessen the charges slightly.
Might put you on that rowboat and just point you to Malaysia.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, well if they can come up with that 100,000, listen, if they came ask me, they just be practicing, y'all. We just be doing rehearsal.
I think it's going to be a lot because he's gone past the, like, when you're in the police cells here, allegedly, like, it's easier to get out when you're in the holding cells rather than going to the actual jail. Anyway, stupid ass dealing drugs. So
was he dealing or was he using drugs?
He had 5 or 6 different types of drugs on him. I don't know. Maybe he's just having a wild time. But the thing is like, this is what probably happens to a lot of people here is that they always think, oh, it's never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to me. You just need one snitch, and that's it. Well,
that's true too. But more importantly, what I think is
because the snitches get paid.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Snitches get paid everywhere. Trust me.
That's what was happening. I remember going.
Snitching is good business for some people.
I remember going to Bali, and the story was that you could. I mean, they're always hustling on the side of the road. Hey, you want weed, Viagra, cocaine, blah 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 blah, and they'll sell you the weed, and then they'll go rat you out to the police, and then the police will extort you for money, and then they get a cut of that, allegedly.
Allegedly. But here's what I do know. People come out here, right, and they come out. Well, they start out in Bali. They start out, you might be here on vacation. I want to stay a little bit longer. So back in, let's just say 5-10 years ago, oh, you was a DJ? Oh, cool. So it wasn't hard for you to kind of piece together a couple gigs here and there. You're a foreign DJ. They put you on the bill, give you $2-3 million, 2-3 million rupiah, not dollars, 2 or 3 million rupiah, which is like $200 bucks. You might get $200 a night. You know what I'm saying? You living large out here. If you do that 3-4 times a week, you can piece together a decent living in a month. But then pandemic hit, ain't no clubs open, ain't no bars open.
Yeah.
But one thing gonna sell when cotton and corn. Well, 2 things gonna sell when cotton and corn won't, and that's some of that some of the oldest profession and narcotics. And unfortunately, a lot of people, and this is not just here. A lot of people in the States are turning to doing it. I was just watching a Vice documentary because people ain't been having a lot of work back home. Those people who are on the borders been doing a lot of smuggling for the cartels now.
Yeah.
So, people doing what they got to do to make ends meet, but unfortunately, this is not the spot.
Doing something strange for some change.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing. Like I had to flying a lot here and going abroad, having to do visa runs and all this stuff, or even going on holiday abroad. One of the main things you hear on the airplane coming in is like Indonesia has some serious drug laws which carry the death penalty. So you get told every time you're flying in here, but still some stupid ass people do it.
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, but hey, good luck to you, DJ Vargas. Good luck to him. What's his name? Sister. I don't want to talk about her. I mean, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs. Don't get caught. Not here.
So we have an excellent guest on. Chuck Modi.
We got Chuck Modi coming up. We're gonna be right after these messages. You guys stay tuned. Go refill your cups. I'm on the waters today because it's early in the morning. Refill your cups. You guys, we'll be right back with more Black and the Brits. Stay tuned.
Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.
All right, and welcome back. I want to welcome Chuck Modi to the show. Chuck? Chuck, how are you?
Great to be here. I'm great. Great to be here. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Giles, how you doing?
All good after the technical difficulties, a little heart palpitations, but
this is a great interview for me. Well, not just for me, but for us, because I have been following your work for a few years, as we spoke before we started recording. I followed you. I learned about you through Dave Zirin, and then from Dave Zirin, I started following you on Twitter. So I know about all the stuff you've been up to. Just please give us a little bit of our audience, for those who are unfamiliar with your work, give us a little bit of background about how you got started and what your work consists of primarily.
Sure. You mentioned Dave Zirin. It's funny because I would write a lot of sports articles and people would always come up to me and say, hey, do you know Dave Zirin? I was like, as a matter of fact, I do. And we often co-host a show together, as we will be doing tomorrow. So we often talk about sports from a socio-political lens, from a racial justice lens. And we try to attack everything that is going on in the world. And in recent years, a gentleman by the name of Colin Kaepernick has made that really, really easy for us. So it's very simple to do. So I usually spend a lot of time doing that type of sports journalism and trying to reach individuals through popular culture. I'm also a sports nut. And the other half of the time, I do journalism in the street, covering protests that are going on, usually against police terror, sometimes against the neo-Nazis and the like. But the protests that are in the streets, I like to interview individuals and ask them why they came out, whether it was in Ferguson, whether it was in Standing Rock, or whether it was more recently in the post-George Floyd protests.
Wow, it's rare that we get somebody who's not only involved in, like, you know, on the ground activism, but also in sports. Because, you know, most people don't, most activists are not really into sports. So this is a rare opportunity. So that's why I'm excited. I want to start first and foremost, stop the steal. Where were you?
Ooh, where was I at Stop the Steal? Now, people think it was just January 6th. So let me take you back 2 months. November 14th was the first Stop the Steal. And there were neo-Nazis in town, and there were Proud Boys in town and Trumpers in town who created havoc, who tore down Black Lives Matter signs throughout the city, who stabbed a couple of people, who got in fights. We saw that November 14th in the original Stop the Steal. Then we had a follow-up on December 12th when there was more havoc and there was more rioting. And what happened is the police did nothing. The police did nothing except arrest a lot of people who they assaulted. That brings us to January 6th, which I believe is what you were referring to.
Yes.
Yes. And I bring that context to say January 6th did not happen without a couple of dress rehearsals where the neo-Nazis were empowered and saw what they can get away with. And even in message boards said as much. The police won't bother us. So by the time they get there to January 6th, the police didn't bother them. And I'm standing on the lawn, actually, now that you ask, and I'm watching it all unfold, and all I'm asking is, when's the tear gas coming? When's the tear gas coming? Because I've been out here all summer, and without no provocation, protesters fighting for justice for George Floyd were getting tear gas. And I'm sitting there like just waiting. And it never came. And now we've learned a lot more since then and why it never came.
And like I said, you have been out there for the whole summer, right? So
yeah,
I believe the mayor is Muriel Bowser.
Sure.
Now I know she painted the Black Lives Matter on the road. Now it's no longer President 1600 Pennsylvania. It's now Black Lives Matter Avenue. But she was also very very reactive in terms of like calling out the police on protesters. Can you talk about that a little bit, about how in terms of the perception of her is like a progressive mayor, but in actuality she was also, you know, not hesitant to use police violence against protesters?
Well, you're absolutely right, and you know, I thank you for the question because it's a huge misconception. There is an image of Mayor Bowser outside of Washington, D.C. There's the Black Lives Matter painting on the street, and that's a source of great pride. And then the juxtaposition of her to Trump is also a nice narrative that a lot of people like. They like it politically, and they like it racially. There's so many desirable aspects towards that narrative. The only problem is it's not the truth. The truth is, on that same plaza where those letters are written, people over the summer were tear gassed. People were brutalized, protesters. Normally at 2 and 3 in the morning, tents were raided. Those who were protesting in the tents. Individuals were kettled. There was a 40-person kettle on August 14th. And we saw this happen over the summer. We saw various levels of brutalization on the lead up to what we saw January 6th. So we had this juxtaposition that we can, you know, contrast. And I think that juxtaposition really hit a lot of us in the face, media included, because media were also often hit with rubber bullets or pepper sprayed and what have you. And I want to just say that the first 4 days of the George Floyd protest, 437 individuals were arrested. People don't know this. And the vast majority of those 437 were on curfew violations. So in addition to all the dialogue of what the Capitol Hill police didn't do or the local MPD didn't do, After 6 p.m. on January 6th, you had thousands of individuals, many of whom went into the Capitol as insurrectionists, and they could have been kettled. There was a precedence for being kettled if you fought for racial justice, but it never happened. And they could have done that and then later on looked at the video and, compared IDs and faces and put that together. So even after all of the information happened that day, they did not take the same action that happened earlier in June.
Yeah, that is an understatement. What do you make of the accusations that there was some government, possibly allegedly, let's just say allegedly, there were some government officials possibly in this from the highest levels?
I mean, if you look at the evidence, my answer is that it appears to be the case. You see videos of police officers basically rolling out the red carpet. Right, walk right this way. We saw individuals in the Capitol where the police officers say, "Hey, do you need medical attention?" This is mind blowing. I don't know if everyone saw this video, but we're like, what happened when the same officers who were inflicting harm early in the year? So when you look at all the videos and you look what happened and you look the red carpet that was rolled out, you look at the stand down orders that we know now happened. We've seen memos. Well, then I could only conclude what you brought up, that at the highest levels of government were involved. There's no question about it in my mind when you really think about it. And you put the piece together, we also have to understand that most of the police officers are Donald Trump people. I mean, we know this. Many actually wear the badge Trump on their shoulder. So many of those officers are sympathetic and empathetic, even if they weren't in on a specifically in on a conspiracy, so to speak. They were empathizing and said, walk right this way because we believe Donald Trump should be president.
Oh, and I believe we have a word from the president.
And you know what? We're winning.
No, that is, yeah, it's just amazing just to think about it, just because we've seen it didn't, I mean, let's go back to Ferguson. They brought out the tanks. They brought out, and I mean, in comparison, these people weren't making any threats on government. They weren't, I mean, there might have been some damage to some local businesses, but we know those businesses are most of those businesses, especially like the CVSs, they're going to be compensated by insurance claims. So, right. I mean, the threat to the public was not as great, in my opinion. Well, the threat to the government, I should say, public threat, I don't want to debate which one was more threatening, but at least in terms of threat of the government, which would prompt more of a heavy-handed response.
Sure.
The one on January 6th was, I like you thought at some point I'm going to see military.
When's the guns coming out?
When the guns coming out, when the batons, when the ass whooping is going to commence. And it just didn't happen. And I was totally shocked that we would see that. So. Yeah, Josh.
And then there was the video of Trump and his family that they were watching it live or something. And they're having a party, and one of them's like dancing and going all sorts. I think this is crazy just to see. It's as a person that's not from the US, from the UK, it's very weird to see these kind of things that are happening, and you look back because everyone is always like USA's the best. It's always like we're number one, all this stuff, and then you see all this bullshit happening. It's like, shit. How can this be allowed? How is this not getting like boots on necks and just get it all wrapped up? Seeing things burn, seeing people raiding the Capitol, it was crazy to see. It was almost like a movie. It's like there's this some sort of comedy series going on. I don't know what's happening. It's a weird one to witness, and something I never thought I'd see happen and so willingly be accepted. Like, yeah, come on in, come this way. Just go down there, turn left. That's her office. His office is down there. It's ridiculous.
That's exactly what happened.
It's ridiculous.
And I have to tell you, I didn't know that was happening when I was standing on the outside. I didn't know people were inside because they killed our signals, so I couldn't get communication through my phone. I was trying to tweet out videos. It was very difficult at that moment in time. But I want to make a correction that I always make. We always use the language of storm the Capitol. That's not what actually happened. It was inched towards the Capitol. And with each inch that was taken over an hour's time, at any point in time, whether it was tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray, anything that was used all summer could have been used as people inched on the scaffolding, as people inched on the stairs, as people moved up. And it could have all easily been stopped. We don't need more police power. We don't need more police funding. We don't need better training, as some people say. You just need to have the will to stop it, and that will was not there.
Absolutely not. That's a great way. I don't want to keep going on
Did
that.
Did Trump think maybe, oh, well, fuck it, I'm not going to win this anyway, so I'll just let this happen and just let Biden deal with it after I'm gone. I'm going to go back to Mar-a-Lago and play golf.
You know what? And well, Chuck, you want to answer that? Because I got my own theory.
No, you throw me your theory first.
My theory is, excuse me, Trump knew that there are no consequences because, for one, those people, those were a microcosm to the larger base that is the Republican Party, right? And those are the people who support Trump. So they know all the legislators, they're not going to do anything to anger that base. And that's one thing that the Democrats don't do. The Democrats don't respect their base at all, and the Republicans kowtow to the base. And so in terms of being held accountable, I don't think he ever felt threatened at all about being held accountable for anything. So I'm just like, hey, if it happens, I win. And if I lose, I'm still winning because I'm not going. He's not going to jail for any of this stuff. And he's going back to Mar-a-Lago and he's just eating chicken right now, you know?
Right. I mean, I think you're right. I think there's nothing in Trump's history, his entire life, that says he is held accountable for his crimes. There's nothing. So he just keeps taking it one step further. And he's a gangster. I mean, let's call it what it is. And when you look at his maneuvers, he exercises gangsterism. So I thought it was interesting, but what was also interesting is that there were just these larger stand-down orders. And, people don't know this, but if you go back to Charlottesville, and I was in Charlottesville, and there were a number of neo-Nazis pushing up against police officers. And they were not pushing back. I mean, this would have caused mass arrests in a racial justice protest. And they were not pushing back. So we saw there were stand-down orders that if you really want to be treated well by police, it's good to be a neo-Nazi. But there's one major distinction that happened between Charlottesville and then January 6th. Is back then, when the neo-Nazis were openly Nazi, openly white supremacists, would march together, you would have your regular Republican Party say, we're not them. And what we saw in January and November and in December is you had Trumpers who were, by the thousands, and you had a few hundred Proud Boys and some 3%ers and openly neo-Nazi people walking alongside them without repudiation, which is somewhat new, that they melded. They are one now, or at least not bad enough to repudiate. And that's very scary.
Absolutely.
And
Giles?
that's not going away.
Yeah, that is not going away. Giles, you got something?
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you, like our podcast, we kind of started this because we're from completely different backgrounds. Corey's from Oakland, California. I'm from Surrey.
Oakland.
I'm from Surrey, England, and which is like whiter than white. It's the Connecticut of the UK, I think. So I thought about it like how these protesters, especially these white supremacist activists, they're not getting shot at, they're not getting beat up, they're not getting arrested, because if they do start shooting and killing white people, there's 73% of the US is white. There's 230 million people that are white in the US. And if you piss off 10% of them and they all start marching, that's 23 million people that you got to try and control. Whereas in the black community, it's 13% in things. So in contrast, which side kicks off is a lot easier to manage, the black community rather than the white community.
That's a good point.
So I was just thinking maybe they don't want to have this uprise of all these white people going crazy, getting their tiki torches and marching again, because just of the sheer volume of people.
I mean, I see what you're saying, and yet I still come back to they could have dispensed some tear gas. It wouldn't have hurt them to dispense some tear gas that day.
That's true.
I mean, yeah. So, but it's hard to say. We're going to find out in time as investigations happen. What has happened? There are going to be a lot of hidden aspects to this investigation, which is troublesome, of course, because I think if the full knowledge comes out and we find out the depths of white supremacy that is in Congress and in the legislature, it might be mind-blowing to some. I mean, we have FBI reports about the military and police going back a number of years. We have that information, and if you didn't have that information, if you just talk to black people, they would tell you that in America. And that goes back to Oakland. you're from Oakland, and Oakland has a rich activist history. The Black Panther Party was born out of Oakland and took up arms because of police brutality that started. And more recently, Oscar Grant was shot and killed in Oakland, and there was a big uprising there. It just didn't get the media attention and came in a few years before Twitter blossomed to give it that independent media lift.
Yeah, I want to say Oscar Grant was about I was still in the States at the or maybe was I still in the States? I think it was like 2008, 2009? Maybe.
2009. It was.
Yeah.
It was
okay.
Obama was elected. He was going to be inaugurated
right.
on the 20th, and it was January 1st.
That's right. Yeah, I remember it was right out. Yeah, it was all New Year's. And I had just left the country. I've been out of, excuse me, Chuck, I've been out of the country for about almost 10 years now. And so I had just left the country because I didn't spend one day of Obama's term in the States. And I came back approximately a few months after Trump was elected. So
it was 2018, wasn't it? You went back 2017, 2018?
Yeah. So when did Trump get elected? 16, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2006. Okay, yeah. So I came back 2 years after 2 years. My point is, I missed the whole Obama. I'm glad I missed that. So now, great segue, by the way. Biden is president. Racism is over again.
It's all gone. It's all gone. We elected Biden. The promised land is here.
That is right. Let's get a round of applause for Joe Biden. Oh my God, this guy is, gosh, he is in a time warp. He is stuck in 1948 or whatever. I don't know what year he's in. Did you happen to hear his town hall last night or parts of it?
I think I saw the clips in question that you're about to allude to.
God.
About black people not queuing up. Can't form
that wasn't the worst of it. The worst one, and I'm not gonna play it, but the worst one was he was asked about, I think, how can we better address like race relations, something to that effect, and he starts going off about how many interracial commercials you can see on television.
Yeah.
You got to hear it. I don't want to play it. You guys hear it. You guys listen to it for yourself.
Yeah. It wasn't the first time he said that.
No, he said that twice. He said that the first time he said it was on a call with like civil rights leaders about some issue. And then he says this last night. He repeats this again. So they're propping him up, and they had some black, what do you call it? One of those ministers, and they teed him up for this nonsense. And here he goes again. What do you think about Biden? What do you think about his administration so far? And then I want to talk about the deportations that you guys are out there protesting against. But go ahead, just give me your assessment of Biden.
I was a monster Biden critic. I did not want him to win the primary. I put out a lot of threads against him. I tried to inform and educate people his incredible role in mass incarceration in this country. And that a lot of people, even his critics, believe started in 1994. That's not true. You'd have to go way back to about 1981 when he was the head of the judiciary and working with a former segregationist Strom Thurmond to craft
who had
law.
A black daughter, who had a secret black daughter, by the way.
That's true, too. Yes, that's true, too. You know, we could go a lot of directions with the whole Strom Thurmond piece.
Absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But it's great. I spent the weekend on C-SPAN just combing everything going back into the 80s. And my mind is blown because I actually used to believe the whole Uncle Joe mythology. And then I realized even before the crack epidemic ever hit, he was a hawk on mass incarceration. He wanted to get ahead of the Republicans. And you won't believe me, and it's going to take too long, but he was actually to the right of Reagan, and he was to the right of Bush, because he wanted to say the Republicans can't beat us on mass incarceration. So if the crack versus cocaine disparity was, Reagan wanted to stop at 20-1, he upped it to 100-1 as far as the amount you have to fine for equal punishment. Mandatory minimum sentencing, civil forfeiture laws, which are really legalized robbery. If people don't know what civil forfeiture is, it means if you're a drug dealer or not, or I seize
you've been accused. If you've
been accused,
alleged
I could take your belongings. I could take your belongings. I could steal, take everything you got. I could take your car. And these laws are on the books today, and they're still used on the books today. So this happened in the 80s, and I tried to educate folks. Now, listen, at the same time, I as much as I'm against Joe Biden, I did vote because I did see Trump as a level of fascism that we had to sort of stop and live to fight another day with Biden. But as someone told me on the street, when they said, we didn't pick a savior, we picked a different target. And I heard that language. So my feeling is with Biden is to expect nothing. So much so that I am not really even going to get into trying to hold him accountable, because I expect him not to be accountable, particularly around policing and the defund the police movement and that sort of thing. I believe that fight needs to happen locally. I believe everyone needs to fight that where they live, the local police departments, where they live, mass incarceration, where they live. And it's really even a waste of time to try to think you're going to sway Joe Biden when he's been very, very clear on his stance that he does not want to cut funding in any police departments.
Absolutely. And to your point, well, to go back a bit to the 80s, well, this is, it kind of is, it was the what do you call it, the precursor to the politics of that we have today, because once what's his name? Well, it kind of started with Jimmy Carter, but Clinton and Biden was a part of that the third way politics where the Democrats triangulated, right? So they basically took away the Republicans' talking point of getting tough on crime, and they're going to be the more liberal on like cultural issues, social, racial issues, but they're going to be super tough on crime, super pro austerity, like cut welfare and this, that, and the other. So so the Republicans are forced to go super far right, and that's kind of why we have the politics that we have today.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Bill Clinton really mastered that. He would say one thing in a speech. He would sound progressive in a speech. He'd sound like he's pro-racial justice in a speech. But if you were to look at his policies on a blank piece of paper and say, who do these policies represent? You say, these are Republican policies. These are hard right policies. Whether it's crime bill, whether it is his welfare reform bill, whether it is NAFTA, whether it is the Telecommunications Act, which changed media in 1996 and swallowed up all a bunch of little companies that was very pro-corporation and brought all media in America to 5 companies and really internationally as well. He passed so much deregulation, the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which caused the housing crisis in 2008. So from my point of view, and I didn't know this at the time, but I know this in hindsight, Bill Clinton was a Republican president. That's what he was.
Obama was.
And that's what his policies say. Yeah.
Obama was a Republican for all intents and purposes. I mean,
and you could make that argument as well, and came out of the Clinton tradition. So what has happened? If you had 40 years of the Republicans moving to the right, to the white supremacist right, and you have Dems keep moving with them, becoming what maybe Dems today are what Republicans were in 1990s, let's just say. Bob Dole or Jack Kemp are almost, liberal in today's climate. And here's what you have. And then, of course, you end up with Trump, and you end up with a white supremacist mainstream movement. So what do you think's going to happen if you don't fight back for 40 years? That you sign onto $800 billion military bills every year when you have 2 pro-war parties? What do you think's going to happen when you have no resistance to that?
You're absolutely right. And Chuck, really quick, I want to take a break. We want to take a break. We're going to take a quick 20-second timeout, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about some more fun stuff. We're here with Chuck Modi. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.
All right, we are back. We are back with Chuck Modi. Thank you once again for being here, Chuck. I want to lighten it up a bit, get into some more fun stuff, a bit more fun stuff. You're on the Twitters and you're going off about the black QBs. I have my own theory. Can I say what I want to say first?
You start with your theory. I want to hear your theory.
All right, so here's the whole theory. You're talking about the evolution of sports in the United States. I don't know about the UK. Sports in the United States. You've got no black people. Well, black people and white people weren't allowed to play together, or they weren't integrated sports. And then slowly but surely they started integrating the sports, but they would only let blacks play at certain positions, like your running backs, your anytime
I always said the NFL was quite a racist sport because there was a lot of white guys throwing some leather, so a lot of black people just running and chasing and beating each other up over it.
Giles, you're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. So they wouldn't allow blacks to play. I mean, they would slowly integrated blacks, but only at positions where they needed speed at one point, when they need a lot of speed. So we're talking about defensive backs, running backs, wide receivers, that kind of stuff. And then slowly but surely, I mean, even in the 70s, we started getting like our first one or two black quarterbacks, one or two.
Right.
And then in the 80s, it got a little bit better. You get Randall Cunningham and
Warren
Moon also, and Rodney Peete, I believe, a little bit later in the 1990s. So very slowly but surely, you started getting a few more, not a lot. We're talking about out of 32 teams, maybe 3 or 4 of black quarterbacks. But now, as we start to see, we not only just have black players all over the field, dominating the field, except with the exception maybe your offensive line, and kickers and punters. Those are the only place you don't see predominantly, exclusively black players. But everywhere else on the football field, it's becoming a black position. And now you got more black kids playing quarterback. So with that being said, quarterback, when you look at it from an NFL or a college football standpoint, quarterback is management on the field. They are like the closest link to the ownership in NFL, closest link to the coaches. So you get more and more black players, and that's been inevitable because they tried to stop black quarterbacks for a long time. They did not want black quarterbacks, or they would not allow them to play. They would always encourage them to switch positions. So now you've got, not only do you have more black players on the field playing quarterback, the most natural progression after quarterback is where? Coaching. And the coaching is that, well, if you think about it from a white person, like if that's your fear, like them taking over, there won't be anything else for us left. Well, they tried to stop the quarterback. That didn't work. So the most, now, in my opinion, what they're trying to do is stem the flow of black coaches, because what's after coaches? Owners. There you go. You got it, and then they'll really be taking over. And that's what I think they're trying to curb the flow of black coaches into the ranks, because they do not want this, at least at that level, to become overrun by black people.
No, I mean, you're right. And it's more to it than overrun. These are the leadership positions. They're selling a product. When they say Sean McVay, for instance, is a product, the white coach, genius coach, teaching these black players how to play the game. That is a product. People are in love in America with the white genius coach. You've never heard a black coach be called a genius.
Never.
You've never heard that. Jim Caldwell.
He's
a player's coach. Jim Caldwell, who it's a crime that he has not been hired yet. Again, he turned around Matt Stafford in Detroit. If you look at the data and the numbers and what he did, both wins, both performance, he's a QB coach. Jim Caldwell got his start with a young Peyton Manning, who people don't know, threw 100 interceptions his first 5 years, 20 a year. He got Manning to cut it down. He was Manning's QB coach, went to the Super Bowl with him as the head coach. In between, he's an offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. He called all the plays for one Joe Flacco. You know that guy, Joe Flacco, to win a Super Bowl.
Joe Flacco.
This man,
I think Skip
Joe Flacco, 3 separate quarterbacks he has been involved with. He has helped turn around. That's what I call genius. He did it in 3 places. And he can't get a job. But any person who knows Sean McVay can get a job. So we like the NFL likes the white people in leadership. It's the last frontier. And there is racism at the quarterback position. And here's your proof of it. If I say, who are your top 10 quarterbacks? Half of those names are going to be black. 50% of them. You're going to say Deshaun Watson. You're going to say Mahomes. You're going to say Russell Wilson. You're going to say Lamar Jackson. You're going to say Kyler Murray. Okay? And then a couple more might be in the top 15. But if I tell me the bottom 10 starting quarterbacks, they're almost always all white. It's all pro or nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all pro or nothing.
Still in the league, like McCown.
Yeah.
Blake Bortles just won a Super Bowl.
There ain't no black Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know what I mean? It doesn't exist. You can't mess up like that. You can't be that bad over and over and get another chance. So for me, when we're talking about real racism, it can't just be I have to be 3 times better than you. I have to be a Pro Bowler out the gate to get a job. I want to see black quarterbacks develop the way Alex Smith did, who had 6 bad years before he had a good year in his 7th. Okay? Now, that doesn't exist because Alex Smith, in his first 50 games, was 19-31. Vince Young was 31-19, and he was out of the league afterwards.
But to his credit, though, Alex Smith was a number 1 pick. So the number 1 pick overall, that's going to give you a lot of cash.
Vince was number 3. Vince was number 3.
That is correct. That is true.
How many? Yeah, go ahead.
What about Johnny Football? Is it Manziel?
He's playing flag football or something right now. I don't know.
Some crazy stuff.
He's in some league. I don't.
AAF or something?
He's in. But Johnny Football wasn't serious, man.
Well, he's a rich kid, isn't he? He comes from money.
The only quarterback like that, Chuck, that I can think of was, I don't know if you remember Charlie Batch.
Yeah, he's a lifetime backup. He was it's very rare you could find Charlie Batch, but basically almost all the backups are white. The lower end of starters are white. If you're not an all-pro out of the gate with no development time and are blessed to have a supporting cast, then you have a chance. I'm a firm believer if Lamar Jackson was drafted by the Washington football team, he'd be on the bench right now, and they would tell you that he sucks and that they would tell you that he should be a wide receiver now. But he lucked up to get a coach like John Harbaugh, who would use his talents correctly.
Yeah, he used to say he's not too bad for a running back.
Who was that?
Right. He said not too bad for a running back.
Right.
And I don't know if everyone knows the roots of that. It was when Bill Polian, who was a former general manager, 6-time executive of the year, of the highest respect in the GM field, he said Lamar Jackson should be a wide receiver. They should be switched to wide receiver before giving him a chance. Now, you tell me how many times Bill Polian and all those who think like him switched Lamar Jackson's to wide receiver over decades. That could have had some incredible black quarterbacks, but because of their, whether it's unconscious bias or whatever kind of bias, he didn't think Lamar Jackson could develop. And you have to ask me why. And here's where the racism. Go ahead.
It could be just something like, well, damn, you're quick as shit. You may as well play running back. You may as well play wide receiver. It's like, yeah, but I can throw the ball too. Yeah, but you're really fast. But now you got Lamar Jackson doing 1,000 yards a season, getting MVP. Well, not last season. He didn't do too well.
He did all right. He did all right last season. They went to the playoffs.
Oh, he had a great season. He just wasn't the MVP. I mean, you have to think he was an MVP. That's unprecedented. Peyton Manning didn't win his first playoff game until year 6. He was 0-3 in his first 3 years. So we have to make sure we extend the black quarterbacks the same developmental time as we do the great white ones. I tell people all the time, if you look at Jameis Winston's first 5 years and stats, his greatest comparison, almost identical to Peyton Manning.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and people don't see that. They see an interception. They don't see that Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions or averaged 20 his first 5 years. And here's where I believe this, at the minimum, the subconscious racism comes in. When they assign development as a permanent flaw, you can't read defenses or something like that. That is a permanent flaw that you're putting on a player. Or when you use language like they figured him out. That's what they did with Colin Kaepernick. They figured him out. That's language of permanence. So Colin Kaepernick does not have the chance for adaptability like all these other quarterbacks, Hall of Fame quarterbacks who struggled either at the beginning of the career or their middle career. So when you place a language of permanence that someone can't correct something, you are at least on a subconscious level placing your racist bias onto that quarterback, affecting their life.
Or it's kind of like, Randall Cunningham. He was the precursor to all of these guys, all these running, agile, athletic quarterbacks, so to speak. But later in his career, he came back as just like a purely pocket passer when he was with the Vikings.
15-1, he went.
Wow. That's right. They almost went to the
15-1.
Super Bowl.
If Gary Anderson hit that field goal, he'd be in the Super Bowl.
Oh, man.
So field goal?
Yeah, just a little stinking field goal. Anyway, I don't want to get into that because I'm still mad about that game. Anyway, because those are Falcons.
Do you remember what's so crazy about that missed field goal? Do you remember?
I think he did it before, and they called like a freeze timeout, and then he kicked the second one and he missed it.
Oh, that may have happened. I can't remember. But here's the crazy thing. Gary Anderson is one of the greatest kickers in history. And he had a perfect season. It was the first time someone had an entire perfect. He hadn't missed a field goal all season. And all he has to do is kick this field goal and game over. The Vikings go to the Super Bowl. If there was any kicker in history, in any season in history, you wanted kicking that field goal, it was Gary Anderson. And he missed it.
And he missed the one that he missed.
Was it a long one or?
It was about 50.
Not particularly.
I want to say maybe it was like 45, 50.
Yeah, something like 45.
It was indoors though too.
He did.
Indoors.
Yeah, in his sleep. He hits that in his sleep.
See, I'm fairly new to the NFL.
No, you're not.
Because I only got into watching it because we started a fantasy football league. So I had no idea.
Oh, that'll get you into it.
Yeah, I had no idea. I've never watched it. I thought, well, this takes like 3-4 hours to watch it. I was a rugby nut from back home in the UK. And so we started at this fantasy football league. We joined one of our friends who had been doing it for years. And I won the first year. I was 14-2 because I was noticing that these guys, they're all NFL fans, and they're picking their players on emotions. Oh, I'm not going to pick him because he plays for blah, 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 or whatever. And I was just looking at stats and looking at how I kind of like moneyballed the league. Just looking at, I got Odell Beckham off the waivers just a game before he had that immaculate catch, whatever it was, the great catch.
Woo!
So it's been good. So ever since then, I've been
basically what he's saying. I'm not adaptable. He said I can't learn the system. That's what he's trying to say. You see how they do me?
Now I'm balls deep in it every year. I'm doing research and all sorts. So
Chuck, I want to push
impressive. 14-2. That's very impressive,
especially for a first timer. Because I haven't won none yet. I haven't even come in like third or fourth yet.
You keep on forgetting to pick all your team and all sorts.
I want to push back a little bit, Chuck. In terms of like some of these coaches, now you know, and you and I both know that a lot of these guys that a lot of these black coaches, if they do get an opportunity, it's usually going to be at one of the spots that are not very desirable. I think Tomlin was very, very lucky to get on a team that to get with a good team, and they weren't in a slump. You know what I mean? He inherited a fairly good team from Bill Cowher. But usually, for the most part, if a black coach is getting hired, it's going to be like with Brian Flores. It's going to be a rebuilding effort. And if you don't turn it around quick enough, you're going to get fired. So a lot of these guys, it's probably in their best interest not to take some of these jobs. More recently, like Hugh Jackson, you know, he tried to turn that Cleveland Browns thing around, and they didn't give him very long, right? And he's out of there.
Well, you know, I would call Hughes a bit of an outlier. You know, so you know, I give that one up and say, you know, sort of Hughes an outlier. But what's interesting is, to your point, when you look at the coaches, you have to look at a coach versus the talent they have. So when Jim Caldwell goes 9-7 2 years in a row with the Detroit Lions, and the GM fires him and says 9 wins are not enough, and then hires his buddy Matt Patricia, they win 9 wins again, except it took 2 years, right? So at what point do we say, you know what, if Pro Football Focus picked the Lions to win 4 games and 6 games in those 2 years, and my man is winning 9 games, well, what could he do if you gave him 9-10 win roster? You know, he's overachieving. Todd Bowles goes to the Jets, right? Now, people say Todd Bowles was a failure. I disagree. He won 10 games with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Go through Ryan Fitzpatrick's entire 15-year career. He never won more than 6 games in any other year. So if you give me a coach who could win 10 games with Ryan Fitzpatrick, give that man a real quarterback and let's see what he can do. And that's how we have to look at it. But you have the silliness that says, oh, he's bad. Now we see Todd Bowles just engineered the defense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that won the Super Bowl and shut down the great Mahomes. So you have these geniuses, but these geniuses are never given a great quarterback. And the people who are given a great quarterback, like a Zach Taylor, who is on the Bengals and is horrific and is 6-25 or something like that, he gets Joe Burrow the first pick in the draft. Well, how did Zach Taylor get that job? Well, he's the son-in-law of Mike Sherman, a former coach. He has no experience except losing experience. He's never won at any level.
It's not what you know, it's who
he
you know.
He knew Sean McVay. Yeah. So it's the nepotism football league. If you follow the path, you're gonna find son-in-laws, you're gonna find friends and family and people who grew up together.
A lot of that, and but unfortunately, like what's his name, Brian Schottenheimer. Sometimes the father's legacy works against him, because I think that's why one of the reasons why he got fired. Because Marty he just died. Rest in peace, Marty. Marty Schottenheimer. But his father was always kind of known as a.
Can I challenge that statement?
Go ahead.
Marty Schottenheimer became an offensive coordinator in the National Football League, and why did that happen?
I'm not sure.
To me, we have to recalibrate it. The fact that he was a offensive coordinator is because of his father.
Yeah, of course.
The reason Kyle Shanahan got a start at 28 with the Houston Texans was because his father, Mike Shanahan, said to his friend Kerry Kubiak, go sign him. And then Mike Shanahan put him on his staff. So these people are getting starts. I like Sean McVay. I think he's a good coach. But the reason he got a start at 22 and got to go in the league is because he knew some folks and family members
his grandfather
in the league.
His grandfather used to be like
Gruden.
He was like the 49ers way back in the days with Walsh.
Giants coach. He was the Giants coach, John McVay.
Okay, I thought he was with the 49ers back in the days.
Yes, he was with the 49ers as well after the Giants. He worked in the 49er organization, but John McVay, his grandfather, and him and Gruden, their families go back to 1969. If you follow the path, they coached together, the Gruden family and the and McVay family. So you see these incestuous patterns, and they all get in there at 22, 23. You don't see too many black assistants getting in there at 22 and 23 years old. So by the time they're 30, they got 10 years under the belt.
Not too many. The only one I can think of that kind of black, kind of got in an early age, and that's because he was a player, was Dungy. Dungy started out relatively early, but he was starting out relatively early. He started out in his 30s.
I don't think he started in his 30s. I mean, I can look it up, but I think he was into his 40s before he got his shot.
Not as a head coach, like a position coach. Yeah, but I think he was a young coach, because he wasn't that
by
old
black
when he became
standards,
a head.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll go with that. All right, let's go back. Since we're on the quarterbacks, I haven't been a Kaepernick supporter, but I have said that he has deserved a job. He did deserve a job. But it's over. He's never going to play again.
He got that Nike money. He's doing all
But
right.
now he got his own ice cream. Let's talk about the Kaepernick situation. What's your take on why he is not playing?
Well, he's not playing. It's very simple. The owners are illegally colluding against him. They are committing an actual crime. For those who don't know, collusion amongst owners is a crime. It's not like what you see in a regular job. If I don't want to hire someone, I can't. There are literally laws. You can't blackball someone who's worthy of playing. There have been lawsuits in the back. And if you go through history of teams when there was collusion, the league always denies it. You can go back to, people will be surprised if you go back to the Major League Baseball in the 40s before Jackie Robinson. People think there was an actual ban. There was no written ban. There was no written rule. If you went to the commissioner in 1940s and say, is there a ban on black players? They say, no, there was no ban. They're free to be signed. They're not good enough.
Wink, wink. It was a wink, wink kind of ban, right?
It was they called it a gentleman's agreement. And so you have the same thing with Kaepernick right now. So he has been, in my estimation, robbed of over $100 million if you're using the regular quarterback rate, if not more. And he deserves to play.
Is he definitely,
I'm sorry?
Is he definitely better than any starting quarterback at the moment? Or
absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And some of these starters are just awful. They're just horrible. Like I said, usually the back 10 are horrible. And many teams could have signed Kaepernick and give them a better chance. And, we're talking about a man who went to the Super Bowl. We're talking about a man who, in his last year, he split time with Blaine Gabbert, and Gabbert had a 66% passer rating, and Kaepernick had a 90% passer rating, and then a 100% passer rating in his last 4 games recovering from injury. And probably the first person in the history of the NFL whose last 4 games you had a 100 passer rating and you're gone from the league. Meanwhile, Blaine Gabbert was on his 4th team since then. People still giving Blaine Gabbert chances to win. So I don't know what to tell you.
I will say that Kaepernick, well, for one, the imagery was not okay with a lot of white, not only the consumer base, but also a lot of white owners. He came up with that afro, taking a knee. That is definitely not an image that they're really comfortable. They're okay with the braids and all the dreadlocks and all the foolishness, but it's something about that afro. Like you said, it kind of alludes back to the Black Panthers and stuff. And what you're raising your fist, they weren't comfortable with that imagery. They were uncomfortable with that. That's just first and foremost. But more, secondly, I just think, honestly, that Kaepernick, in my opinion, Kaepernick didn't want to play again because now this is just my opinion. I think he saw what the wind was blowing in terms of he could parlay this into something much bigger than it was, and in my opinion, he has done that. Like he's becoming way more of a icon. He would not be this icon had he been like a middling quarterback on the team. So now it's actually it's worked in his benefit that he hasn't played.
What was his reason behind? Because he did the trial day or whatever, and then he said he was supposed to do it somewhere, and then he did it. Did he go down to?
Yeah, that was a sham.
Yeah,
that was a sham.
Yeah,
said,
that wasn't a real work.
It wasn't a real tryout. They sprung some waivers on him, some pieces he had to sign his legal rights away to sue later on. They said, we can't have your media here. It was a complete setup. They gave him 4 days notice. They wanted to move it to another day where scouts could have been there, teams could have been there. It's traditionally on a Tuesday. They said no. So that was a whole sham to avoid future collusion charges. But what I would say is, and I could say this unequivocally, Kaepernick absolutely wants to play, and he waits. And and he shared this with various media members. And he wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning and has been working out religiously every day, like nonstop. He absolutely wants to play. What he doesn't want to do is play and shut up. He wants to be able to play and speak his mind at a press conference if a Breonna Taylor is murdered, if a George Floyd is murdered, and speak freely. And there shouldn't be any rule about speaking freely, and particularly the NFL is allegedly now all of a sudden caring about racial justice. It says end racism in their end zone. It says Black Lives Matter in the other end zone. So do you care about racial justice or do you not? Put your money where your mouth is. And I'll tell you what, if a team does sign Kaepernick, they will make millions more for all the non-fans who buy that jersey, and globally and across the pond in England as well.
Where would he go, though? I mean, he doesn't want to play for the Jets. They were garbage, and then they fucked up their own draft position, winning the last game. That was hilarious.
Well,
That
Chuck,
was
I don't see, like I said, in terms of the marketing, you are absolutely right. But a place for Colin Kaepernick would be in one of the black markets. Jacksonville would have been a good place. Actually, Jacksonville maybe not because it's a big military town.
Washington football team
Washington
would be great. He'd be embraced.
Good. Washington would have been good. Atlanta would have been a good place for him to land. It'd have to be someplace like that. The Raiders. I think he would have made sense at the Raiders.
If Al Davis were still alive, he would be on the Raiders already.
If he would have done it, Al would have done it just in terms of, like you said, the merchandising alone. He would have made his money back or whatever they paid him. So, yeah, I think
Did you grow up a Raider fan? Did you grow up a Raider fan?
I was torn because the Raiders weren't in L.A. at the time. The Raiders were in L.A., and there were the Rams. We had the Rams, the Raiders, and the Chargers, and the Niners. Rams, Raiders, Chargers, and the Niners. So the Raiders weren't in Oakland at the time. So I grew up kind of like a Los Angeles Rams fan, but then once they moved away and they came back in '96, so I kind of jumped off that Rams bandwagon, and then I became a Raiders fan.
But now he's not a Raiders fan now.
I'm mad. I'm tired of the Davises, man. They've just been playing with my heart for as long as I've been alive. You know, they come back, move, come back, and now they're gone. So I'm just saying, if they win it, I'm with it. I'm okay. I'm on that bandwagon again. But right now, nah, I'm not with it.
Well, I will tell you, if Al Davis were still alive, he would have signed Kaepernick already, and he would have made a whole lot of money. A whole lot of money. Absolutely.
So, Chuck, I want to take a quick break. We'll take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and kind of like on what they do on Dave Zirin's podcast. We're going to ask you for your recommendations in terms of anything you want people to watch or a book, anything. Sure. So we're going to take a quick 20-second break, and we'll be right back with the final segment. Stay tuned.
Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.
All right, we are back. We are back with Chuck Modi. Chuck, this is our final segment. Hold on 1 second. Let me get my sound effects ready. Where's my sound effect? Oh, there it is.
Check this out.
All right, this is our last segment. Check this out. And this is where we recommend anything in terms of anything you want people to be, you think they should either read, watch, follow on Twitter, whatever the case is, you tell people what they should be up on.
Okay, well, I guess I'll lead from the discussion we just had on Kaepernick. When you're talking about sports books, I don't know if folks know how Howard Bryant is. He's a ESPN reporter.
Great writer.
Yes. Tremendous writer. Now, let me say this. You don't know Howard Bryant until you actually read his books. His books go into way deeper levels. His last two books, Full Dissidence, I mean, half that stuff they probably won't even allow on ESPN, to be quite honest with you. They just talks about sports and politics and racial justice. But then even the book before that, which talks about the history of the black athlete from a political point of view. So it's not just Kaepernick, but it goes back to the 60s or even goes back to the 40s and Paul Robeson, and talks about the role of the black athlete. And it talks about the disappearance of politicization from, say, the 1970s to the 1990s, the proliferation of cop shows that happened during that time, for going back to Dirty Harry that became popular, the proliferation of cop shows after 9/11, paid patriotism at games to promote policing, promote the military as giving immunity to them. And I thought it was just such a wonderful read. So check out his last two books, and it's called The Heritage, the one 2 books ago. So I love Howard Bryant, the book author, even more than I like the writer.
All right. Thank you. So the first book is Full Dissident, right? Full Dissident.
The last one was called Full Dissidence, and the one before that was called The Heritage. He's talking about the heritage, and he's talking about the history of the black athlete.
Check those out, everybody. All right, Giles, what you got?
All right. Well, I fell into last weekend. I got a bit too woozy, and I was a bit drunk. And the next morning, I was hungover as hell, sat on my sofa, and I was flicking through Netflix. And my heritage, my father's from Norway, and I was looking at this show. It's called Norseman on Netflix, and it's a comedy series about a Viking village in the 8th century. And what I really liked is it's all Norwegian actors, but they're all speaking English. They all have that Norwegian accent of how they speak English, and it kind of reminded me of being in Norway and being with my family. And it was just a really cool thing to watch. And there's 3 seasons on it. I'm already through the 2nd season now, just sat sweating underneath the AC whilst hungover watching this thing and reminiscing of life in Norway. That's my.
Are you binging?
Endorsement. Yeah, binging. I was so hungover. I had a McDonald's breakfast delivered. Then I had a pizza. Nothing was helping. I thought, do I have to crack open a beer to get rid of this hangover? I just sat.
Do you want to hear something funny? When I said, "Are you binging?" I was referring to you binging on the shows, but you're talking about binging.
I was double dipping. I couldn't kick the hangover. I don't know what it was. We have a friend here in Jakarta, and he always buys Jaeger bombs for everyone. And so his name is Sudesh. So we've actually called it. We say you got Sudeshed. And that was one of the nights where he was just loading up the drinks up full of Jaeger bombs. And at the time, it's all great. You're drinking them and you're feeling good. But the next day, man, those hangovers are evil. So I was stuck on my sofa. My dog was upset with me because I was stinking up the place. And just watched the show, and I double dipped on the binging. So yeah, that was it. Norseman.
All right, Norseman. All right. Well, I got a twofer. I am a fan of dark comedies. I really love dark comedies. One of my favorites was Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. Also,
watch that all the time.
I used to watch it. I still watch it at least about once a month.
It's funny because Corey would try and do the lines in the English accent, and it's just
that's one of my favorites. Observe and Report. This is a great movie. Offset that mall cop movie that Paul Blart made. Paul Blart. Observe and Report is way better than that, but this one is called the Breaking News in Yuba County. Oh my goodness! Oh, it's really really
Is it
great.
a movie or a series?
It's a movie.
It's a movie.
It's a dark comedy. Really, it's got a great cast. Mila Kunis is in it. Matthew Bodine. What's the girl? Oh, I forget her name. Her name is like I forget her name. Big tall white lady. She's in a lot of funny stuff. It is a great movie. Breaking news in Yuba County. Dark comedy. Everybody's gonna enjoy. You will enjoy. Wanda Sykes is in it.
I'll check it out.
Aquafina is in it, and also the Rock. The Rock has a new series. I watched it last night and I was thoroughly impressed. Because you never know with The Rock. Sometimes if you ever watch his movies, sometimes he's not black. Sometimes he have like white kids, Mexican kids, he's all over the place. But now he was really leaning into his being black and Samoan, and I thought it was really, really cool. It's funny. It's kind of like what's that show where the kid came from China, I want to say Korea or China? Fresh off the boat. It's shot in that style where they like doing a lot of flashbacks.
How many chicks out you got? Jesus Christ.
Just those two. Just those two.
Three.
Just those two. Check
Well,
those
you know,
out.
The Rock's been impressive. I mean, I got to tell you, as an actor, I have to tell you, I've been actually impressed with his transition. You could tell he puts in the work to try to be a good actor and not just trying to get by on his muscle, you know?
Honestly, I think, and this show kind of alluded to that. I honestly believe that this show was like, it's like a launch to his camp unofficially.
Did it have
like,
Kevin Hart in it?
No, he does mention Kevin Hart though, right off in the first 5 minutes. But I honestly think this is launching his presidential candidacy.
He said
it, right?
If the people want, I'll run.
In the show, it's talking about it. So the show takes place in the future, like 2032, and he's running for president 2032.
Really?
Yeah, and it's flashing back into all his years. That's why I thought it was excellent. I've only seen one episode, but if you haven't seen it, check that out, man. It's called The Early Rock or the Rock Years or something like that.
I'll check it out. I was impressed with his acting in Jumanji, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, he's so big, he could just, if he wanted to mail it in and just have big muscles and be that guy, he could. and he's putting the work in, so I got to give the guy credit. I mean, if you're talking about series, my wife wrote me into the vampire movie, The Originals. I don't know if either of you have seen that, but there's a series. It's like the original vampires, and 4 seasons. So I've been watching that one, but I definitely check that out. It's pretty interesting.
Awesome. All right, we'll do. Chuck, thank you again. Please let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter, on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, and also about your column on Deadspin, correct?
Yeah, Deadspin. So I just recently wrote a column. You can find me on Twitter. I do a lot at ChuckModi1, Chuck MODI1, where I cover a lot of the street protests that we alluded to. Deadspin's where I do my writing. And listen, just say thank you for having me. Much appreciated. And
what's the Cash App for people to donate? So we're gonna get our donate on as well. So people, so they can, if they want to contribute to what you're doing.
It's Chuck Modi1, Cash App Chuck Modi1.
We don't have access to Cash App here, so I think you had something like Venmo.
Really?
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, I have a Venmo too, and it's in my bio on the Twitter, Chuck-Modi. So if you go to that Twitter, you could see it in the bio. People don't normally ask that information, so hey, thank you for asking.
Most welcome.
Most welcome. And thank you for joining us, taking time out of your evening. It's been a pleasure, Chuck. And listen, I'm so happy, thankful that you came on the show, and wish you nothing but success in the future.
Hey, really appreciate it. Thank you both.
Cheers, Chuck.
Cheers.
All right.
You have a good one.
All right. We are back with Chuck Modi. Excuse me. We're not back with Chuck Modi. Chuck Modi was just here. And
what a great guy.
Great guy. Great interview, man.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. Shout out to Chuck.
You can tell he does professional speaking. You can tell the way he talks is all professional. Way more professional than us, anyway.
Well, we're not getting paid to be professional speakers, man. Well, actually, we are.
Well.
We haven't, not the paid part. Not the paid part.
Dapar Ruben needs to hit us up again. We keep shouting them out.
No, it's all good. Giles, anything else you want to add before we get out of here, man?
No, I'm good.
Good. Well, this has been another episode of The Black and the Brit. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget, share, like, and subscribe. All of that. Do what you guys to do. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagrams,
Everything.
man. And we'll be back with more guests like the great Chuck Modi and who else? Bad Brad, Nives Gardoni. You know how we do it. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back next week with more Back in the Brit. Peace out.
Alpha males are back.
Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.